Hi everyone, Peter here from Flow High Performance, and in this video we will cover how we can track calories and macronutrients without having to weigh any food on a scale. First and foremost, we need to establish why trainees should even track their food in the first place. Food tracking is simply a way to quantify what we eat. By keeping a record of what we eat, we can accurately measure how many calories we consume in a day and the macronutrients composing these calories. Food is usually tracked using a mobile phone app like MyFitnessPal. Food tracking is not mandatory to achieve your body composition goals, but it makes the process more accurate and predictable because you are quantifying the variable of calories, so you know exactly what you are consuming. So for those who use food tracking to quantify their nutritional intake, this video will help you make this process more sustainable. While food tracking can be a highly effective method to quantify nutritional intake, it can also involve some potentially negative side effects. One issue with tracking your nutrition is weighing your food. While food weighing is the most accurate way to quantify intake, it may contribute to some negative side effects. Food weighing is ultimately an inconvenient task. It takes more time and effort to weigh your food and try to fit it into a calorie and macronutrient target. This simply makes food tracking a less sustainable approach, and for some it can potentially contribute to some fairly severe issues. Let's now cover what issues obsessive food weighing can lead to. The first issue that obsessive tracking can contribute to is a poor relationship with food. This refers to an emotional attachment to food intake, where trainees often feel guilt or shame about eating certain foods. This may be because they couldn't track their food and feel a loss of control, or they associate the value of food with calories and macronutrients. This could potentially cause elevated neuroticism and anxiety. Trainees can become very neurotic about food tracking, and any deviation from this results in elevated anxiety levels. This is probably a result of the trainee feeling like they have lost their diet structure and don't know how to cope without it. This may also lead to a cycle of binging and excessive restriction, which brings about a feeling of guilt and shame from their actions. The next issue with obsessive food weighing is its impact on a trainee's social life. While some people are more or less social than others, everyone probably has some interaction with friends and family at certain occasions. Therefore, it becomes very difficult to accurately track food intake during certain events, and even more so to weigh your food. For the most part, trainees probably shouldn't even be thinking about food tracking during these times, rather they should be spending time enjoying the occasion. However, ultra-obsessive food tracking may even cause trainees to avoid social events at the expense of their diet. While this is understandable in specific contexts like someone in the late stages of a physique contest preparation, but for most people at most times, it is probably not healthy or sustainable to avoid social events. And the last issue that obsessive food tracking can contribute to is dissipating reliance on intuitive hunger signals. Intuitive hunger signals refer to our perception of hunger and fullness, which are regulated by food intake and hormonal activity. If we track food too obsessively, we can start to lose connection with these signals and almost forget how to eat without tracking. This is a negative consequence because there will inevitably be times that we can't track our food accurately, and we need to rely on these intuitive signals to allow us to eat a reasonable amount of food. So now that we've discussed how obsessive food tracking can contribute to certain negative consequences, let's now cover how we can minimize food weighing to make tracking more sustainable. Weighing our food is a tedious process that makes everything less efficient and more inconvenient. If we don't have to weigh our food, then we can save more time and make tracking a much easier process. Let's now cover some strategies to minimize how much food we actually have to physically weigh. The first and most effective strategy is to use pre-portioned serving sizes. This refers to using serving sizes labeled on the package or using the natural serving size of the product. Trainees can simply input the food into their chosen application and use whatever number of servings they want to eat. So rather than having to weigh the food, trainees can simply search the food or scan the barcode and then select how many servings they want. This also means that trainees don't need to be at home with a scale to track their food. They can buy food from a store and track on the go, provided that the food has a label or standard serving size. This means that the caveat to this strategy is that the food must have a label or a standard serving size like we mentioned. Therefore, because not all foods come with a pre-portioned serving size, some foods can only be estimated. The next strategy we can implement is to estimate the weight of foods. This shouldn't be something to rely on, but it can certainly be effective for certain foods. There are two situations that estimating food weight can be an accurate and effective way to minimize weighing. First is for low-calorie foods. Foods like fruit and vegetables are very low in calories for the most part, and probably don't need to be weighed. Some fruits and vegetables have pre-portioned serving sizes already, so we don't need to even estimate them in the first place. Something like 1 orange or half a tomato can be inputted using pre-portioned serving sizes, but other foods cannot be. For these foods, we can just estimate roughly how much we have in our meal, and as long as we are roughly in the ballpark of the real weight, it probably doesn't really matter. This is because low-calorie foods simply don't have a high calorie density. So even if we are not accurate with our estimation, it probably won't have much impact on our overall accuracy of food intake over the course of the day, and even less so for the entire week. For example, if we estimated that we had 100 grams of watermelon, this would be around 30 calories. However, if the real weight was actually 130 grams, this would be around 39 calories. So the net difference would only be around 9 calories. This is hardly something to worry about, especially considering there is probably a similar degree of inaccuracy with food labeling and nutritional variation in food already. The second appropriate situation to estimate food weight is for small portion sizes that are insignificant in calories. This is because when we use a very small amount of a certain food, we are probably going to be more accurate with our estimation. Furthermore, a smaller portion of food will have less calories than a larger portion, so it makes up a smaller total amount of your total daily calorie intake. This means that even if the estimation is slightly off, it probably isn't going to impact total daily calories and less so total weekly intake very much. For example, we may estimate that we have put 30 milliliters of low-fat milk in our cup of tea, which equates to roughly 14 calories. If it was actually 45 millimeters in reality, this would be 21 calories. This is only a difference of 7 calories, which like we mentioned is hardly noticeable in the grand scheme of the diet. It should also be noted that estimating food weight is probably going to be more accurate if trainees have some idea of how much different foods weigh in the first place. If we have a baseline idea of what certain food weights look like, then we can scale this to more accurately estimate weight. So it is recommended that if you are introducing a new food that you don't really know how to estimate, then it may be a good idea to weigh out your serving size initially and infrequently over time to get a rough idea of how much it really is. And the last strategy to minimize food weighing is to not track at all in certain situations. While we can use pre-portioned serving sizes and estimate food for the most part, there are times when it is probably best not to track your food at all. This is highly context and situation dependent, but almost everyone will have times in their life where tracking food will be doing more harm than good. There will probably be times when food won't have labels or pre-portioned serving sizes and you don't have a scale to weigh anything. For example, this will probably be the case during social events or family occasions with home-cooked food. During these occasions, trainees can rely on intuitive hunger signals and sensible decision-making. Rather than trying to calculate the calories and macronutrients of the food you are eating, it is probably easier to just eat if you are hungry and stop when you are satisfied. Furthermore, from your experience of tracking food, you probably know what foods are generally higher and lower in calorie density and can make sensible decisions from there. If there are high calorie foods present, maybe don't eat a huge amount of it, only have a small serving. At the end of the day, calorie intake probably won't be drastically different from your regular intake, and even if it is, it probably isn't going to impact your diet in the long run unless it is a very regular occurrence. Now that we have covered what strategies we can use to minimize food weighing, let's cover some example meals that don't need to be weighed at all. In this first meal, we have one bagel sandwich with a fried egg and some low-fat ham that has been pan-fried. We also have a small tub of low-fat, high-protein yogurt and a coffee with a small amount of skim milk. According to the labels of these particular foods, let's track this meal. First, one bagel is labeled as one serving on the packet, so we can simply scan this food into our app and easily input one bagel. The egg can simply be searched and inputted as one large egg, which is a standard serving size. The ham is half of a packet that it comes in, which according to the label is one serving size, which happens to be 50 grams in weight. This can again be scanned into your application and inputted as one serving. The egg and ham have both been pan-fried with a small amount of spray oil, which can be estimated as around 5 grams. Next, we have the tub of yogurt, which has its own food label and can simply be scanned and tracked. And last, we have our coffee, which has no calories. However, we have skim milk in the coffee, which we will estimate is around 50 milliliters. So as we can see, our total calories for this meal are 608, with around 40 grams of protein, 75 grams of carbohydrates, and 16 grams of fat. This can all be tracked without having to weigh a single gram of food. In this next meal, we have a white wrap with sliced turkey, low-fat cheese, tzatziki dip, and various vegetables like lettuce, capsicum, tomato, and carrot. We also have one whole orange and a protein shake mixed with water. According to the labels of these particular foods, let's track this meal. First, we have one wrap, which the packet labels as a serving, so we can scan it into our application as one wrap. To be extremely accurate with the tzatziki, we would have to weigh it. However, we can just estimate the amount we use because it is fairly low in calories and we aren't using a large portion. For this example, we have estimated it as 40 grams. This could be weighed every now and again, just to make sure you are actually using the rough amount that you are estimating. The sliced turkey comes in individual packets, and this wrap uses one packet of turkey, which was 80 grams according to the label, which can simply be scanned and tracked as one serving. The cheese comes in individual slices, which means we can simply add this to our app as one slice. With the vegetables, because they are all very low in calories, we can just estimate the rough weight of the entire amount and track it as lettuce or capsicum or some other low calorie vegetable. It doesn't really matter because they are all very similar in calories and have a very low calorie density. So for this example, we have just inputted the vegetables as 200 grams of tomato, which will cover all the vegetables in the wrap. The orange can be tracked as one whole orange because it has its own standard sizing. And lastly, the protein shake contains one scoop of protein powder mixed with water. We can simply scan the particular protein powder we use and use one scoop as a measure of the serving size. So as we can see, our total calories are 602 with around 52 grams of protein, 77 grams of carbohydrates, and 8 grams of fat. Once again, this can all be tracked without having to weigh any foods. To summarize this video, let's establish some practical recommendations. First, we need to establish that weighing your food is not an inherently bad thing. In fact, it can be a very useful tool to quantify food in certain situations. However, too much food weighing can become an inconvenient task and may make food tracking an unsustainable process. Therefore, we can use some strategies to minimize food weighing while still accurately tracking calorie and macronutrient intake. These strategies include using pre-portioned serving sizes and estimating certain foods. Furthermore, there are times that it may be better to not track at all and use other strategies to eat sensibly. Trainees can use intuitive hunger signals and make sensible food choices to make smarter decisions. Hopefully this video can help some trainees maintain a sustainable dietary approach and achieve their desired nutrition goals. Thanks for watching, and hopefully you got something out of this video. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already.